This will be a good one.
It'll be a good one.
Definitely a different type of process.
Cut down or freeze up.
Being a coach's son.
Jackson, of course, they keep retooling. One stone to face, a hit by pitch. Oh my goodness.
Welcome everybody to another episode of the Hitting Zone podcast. Today we are here at the Rigers. I mixed the two together. The Rawling Tigers training facility down here in Chesterfield, Missouri. Brought to you by Game 7 Baseball. Game7baseball.com is one of our sponsors. Go to Athletics, batting glove company, local, Mitch Harlan. We've had them on the show. If you have not seen that, go check them out. Of course, Prime Sports Midwest. They are a big sponsor for our show. So make sure you go check those guys out. The camera's over here. I'm looking over this way like the camera. I'm looking right at you, Lord. Sorry, keep that in there. Let everybody know we make mistakes and we can recover pitch to pitch. But anywho, shout out to our sponsors. Make sure you go check them out. If you need your gear, you're looking for tournament play, or you need some new batting gloves, you got to go check them out. I don't have mine with me. They got some new colorways coming, and they have a new website. Go to athleticsproducts.com. And then the Prime Sports Midwest, 1550 Ocello Drive. That's the Fenton location, and it's 7505. Got it. Mid Rivers, Mexico Road. I got the easy part wrong. Great start to my Tuesday here. But anyways, I got a special guest. I've actually had this young man on a podcast with the Joplin Outlaws Sports Talk guys. It's cool to be back with this young man. He had a great summer. I'm excited to talk baseball, talk shop with him today. But I'm going to let him introduce himself to all the YBM fans. So if you could just introduce yourself.
Well, YBM, my name's Carter Mize. I work for the Rawlings Tigers. I still play baseball professionally, played in the Pioneer Leagues and Independent League. And like Mitch said, I was on the podcast earlier for the Outlaws before I went down to Joplin for a little while. But yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, so that was a fun experience. You're a local product to the GACs. O'Fallon, Missouri is where he's from. Fort Zumwalt West.
Yep.
Where did you go after you played at Fort Zumwalt West?
So I'm kind of a journeyman, it feels like, of all college and pro baseball. Basically, I was going to go to Longview Community College in Kansas City. Got a phone call after my senior year of high school that they're going to cut the program after my freshman year. Head coach goes to Park University, the NAI in Kansas City. I was like, what's Park University? Never heard of it. But I was like, where else am I going to go? I was supposed to be there in 4, 5, 6 weeks. So I go with him. I was there for a semester. I figured out that being a freshman in an NAI school is really hard when there's 75 guys. I mean, it was a good place, it's hard. Yeah. And I wasn't ready to play, at on varsity level. Of course, I thought I was, right? Because I was clueless and I was 17. Transferred to Kaskaskia Community College for the spring. Was there, got, I don't know, maybe 40 at-bats or so. Left there. Went to St. Charles my sophomore year. Was there for Coach Jeff Bullen's first year. Awesome coach. Loved it. Was there for that year. Then I went to Missouri Baptist. Was there for 3.
Gotcha. That is quite the journey that you had. It seemed like you moved back home. Was that a better experience for you, kind of just moving back kind of in the area of your hometown versus maybe being 3 or 4 hours away? Was that a big driver in why you chose Kaskaskia? Because that's over just across the river in Illinois. St. Charles, obviously, right down the street from your house, and Mobap's not too far away. Was that a big push, or was it the coaches that were there? What drove you to those 3 schools?
Well, Kaskaskia, honestly, I could have probably sought out some resources for how to go about it better, right? I was clueless. I started emailing coaches, and I remember my park coaches called me, and they're like, hey, are you thinking about transferring? I was like, no. But they already knew all the schools I'd emailed, and I just wanted to go to a junior college. I was like, I need to go to junior college. And I just had it set in my head. My buddy Zach Krause, which you may know, we went to high school together, and he was getting recruited by Kaskaskia. I was like, hey, give me that coach's phone number. I just shot him a text, and I went over there Thanksgiving, right around Thanksgiving, and checked it out. And, gave me a tuition scholarship, and I was like, sold, I'm coming.
Yeah.
You know?
It's quite the journey. So like, just talk to, like, for the young kids out there, because there's so many kids that are just kind of afraid of making that next step, and so they get to a certain point where in their playing career they end up like saying, I'm done with baseball, because they have kind of nowhere to go. And there's some really talented athletes that are kind of moving on into maybe their career path, which is ultimately maybe the end goal for them. But clearly you can make changes and benefit yourself after learning more information. So what can you say to those kids who are struggling with making the commitment to play college baseball? You played at 4 places, and so I feel like you have a great experience. I know I have my own coaching it and playing in it. I tell kids left and right, like, whatever it takes, go play college baseball for a year.
Yeah.
There's nothing like that environment. I don't think there's ever anything like that environment. So what would you say to a young kid that's like 17 and is like, man, I don't think I'm going to go play college baseball anymore, when that's been a dream for the last 5?
I would, obviously, like you said, I would tell them to do it. Obviously, like, I didn't grow up with dreams of going to Park or Kaskaskia, right? Like, nobody does. They all want to go to Vanderbilt and go to Mizzou and go to Missouri State. But I think, like you said, you got to at least do it for a year. Like, you got to go and you got to give it a shot. And I know for me, like, kind of, well, 2 things. One, I may not have always been doing the right work, but I was always putting in a lot of work, right? Like, I was maybe doing the wrong drills or maybe my lifting routine really wasn't all that good, right? But, like, I was in the gym 4 or 5 days a week doing something, right? And I think over time, as I get older, I could, like, keep the same work ethic, but just tailor it more, a little bit as I learn more. And you have to do it, because you can always just say, I gave it a shot and I just didn't work out.
I feel like that's always going to be available to those athletes. Like, if they choose to go to a junior college, which I see a lot of young athletes committing to junior colleges, I guess, with some of the changes in the rules and the D1 experience. So you're seeing a lot of kids kind of move to that JUCO level, because obviously there's a trickle down effect, right? So some of those borderline D1 kids are going D2, et cetera.
Yep.
And so, what I think is, like, the worst case scenario is go somewhere for a year, have that experience, because to grind through junior college, I think is one of the hardest things to do, is to play junior college baseball or NAIA, because of what you just talked about earlier, was how many guys they bring in.
Yeah.
And they purposely try to weed you out.
Yeah.
So they will run you, they will drag you through the mud. And I feel like it's like hell week for like not as bad as a Navy SEAL. I don't want to compare the two, but at the end of the day, that's literally what they're trying to do, is weed out the guys who don't have the intestinal fortitude to make it. So, I'm like, but if you do, the experience is awesome. The bus trips, the late night snacks when you're trying to travel halfway across the country with very little budget, And I till I'm blue in the face, man, go play college baseball.
Yeah.
I don't care where it's at. If you're not getting heavily recruited by your favorite school or your top school, but you got somewhere on that list that's 7, 8, or 9, and they continue to want you.
Yeah.
That's a big factor, I think, is being wanted. And I think that's in anything, though, right? It's whether you have a partner in life or your facility, you're an employee, you always want to feel wanted, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's a big deal. But I want to talk hitting, because I know this man can rake. We had the luxury of bringing you on the show with the Joplin thing that we got involved with at the hitting zone, and then we had you guys as sports talk people up, in which they're fantastic to us. They were, and I got to follow you a little bit with the Joplin Outlaws, and obviously seeing that you played. Looks like you played some first base, DH.
Yeah.
What is different now with your approach to hitting when you were a high school kid, or obviously I know there's a big gap. There's some maturity. What are you, 24?
26.
26. Well, this is peak maturity for your brain as an adult. But so what has changed from that 17-year-old Carter to now that 26-year-old Carter, that you can help these youngsters, who aren't going to listen? But I know what happened for me, and I just kind of want to see what happened for you as far as the development of your game.
From 17 to now, my wife can attest, I don't always do a perfect job of this, but is disconnecting my on-field results from, like, me as a dude, me as a person. 17-year-old Carter rode the mental wave like crazy. Like, if I had a bad game, I was mentally, and I'm, I looking in the mirror like, oh, I can't do this anymore. I can't do it. And then I go out the next day, I get a couple hits, and they could be 57 hoppers through the hole, but it's a hit.
Yeah.
So, and I'm like, oh, I'm better, and then oh, I'm bad. No, I'm better. I think again, I don't always do a perfect job of this now because it's hard to, but I think I'm closer to. I think every year I keep playing, like I get closer to being able to kind of be even keeled. And I think that's not the worst way to go about it either. I mean, you're a young kid and you're emotional.
Sure, yeah.
And I get emotional now too. I mean, I'm not immune to those struggles.
I don't like to lose, right?
Yeah.
So I don't want to lose in a bat, and I don't want to lose a game because ultimately I might have an at bat in the game that might have cost the team a W or something of that nature because I had an opportunity to drive a run in.
Yep.
The thing about this is like what I always think baseball is, and everybody calls this a big team sport, which I'm not going to disagree that it's a team sport, but I have an individual job to do in an individual moment. So I have to make sure in that one moment that I'm locked in.
Yep.
And so I feel like when I'm 0 for 4 and I reflect on my at-bats, which this is what changed for me from that emotional kid when I was in high school to when I got into college and we started doing a lot of mental stuff, preparedness, training, being a little bit stronger,
Yep.
was just kind of identifying the 3 minutes that I might stand in a batter's box of a 2.5 hour game.
Yeah, I didn't know.
And you train all these hours for literally maybe 7 pitches in a game that you get a chance to swing at.
Yep.
How are you supposed to, just lock in on how bad you were because you missed a barrel or something like that? And it's like, I always kept getting asked, what did you learn? I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm learning, and I would say that because it's the easy way out.
Yeah.
Then I found out what I was learning or how to learn. And that was because of maturity. And I try to teach that now. And I got to remember that's the hardest thing to get through to a kid because failure is a real thing in today's generation. And how do you kind of deal with that? Or do you work with all levels of kids, youth to high school, or just one set?
Yeah, it's all. I mean, it can from the private lesson side, I can go anywhere as low as 6, and then all the way through 17s.
So what do you do for your athletes who at like 10 years old are already just like they get frustrated, put a head down if they have like 5 bad swings in a row?
Something I do with a couple of guys is I have like mega short rounds, like crazy short rounds. Like I'll draw a line in the sand, like the third ball, if they hit the third ball hard, I cut it. That, and I had to, with one of the guys I was working with at high school, be like, all right, if you get mad, like you're out. Like, you know what I mean? You're out of the cage.
Yeah.
And it's just because he's a perfectionist and I can relate, I get it. I hit a ball really hard, but it's this much lower than I want it to be. I'm like, oh, I got to get it higher. Like, what I'm saying?
This morning I watched something just speaking about launch angles and numbers and stuff like that because we have so much data. I actually saw Billy Ripken talk about this. I don't know when it was on MLB. It could have been during the season or whatever. And they talked about launch angles and stuff like that. And for me, when I'm hitting baseballs, and this is me, and I'm going to feed off that into my youth and what I like to see out of the youth, is the baseball up the middle, head high.
Yep.
From the guy throwing the ball.
Yep.
Whether it's a machine, whether it's a coach flipping underhanded or overhanded, what impresses me is how many times you can hit the back wall on a line drive. Everything else after that, I couldn't care less about. Yep. Like you hit a cage bomb, if you roll over a ground ball, I'm like, we don't do that pull side. We pull in the air, we opposite field ground ball, line drive up the middle. That's our approach in our cage work.
Slant.
Yeah, and it's always that way. It's always been that way. It's how I was taught. I was literally taught if I'm swinging inside to hit the ball there. They didn't tell me mechanics. And and so I'm trying to go back old school because I feel like we put so much pressure on the kids mechanically that they come in and have those rounds.
Yep.
But I love that piece, what you talked about, short rounds,
Yep.
The process rounds. You got to step out of the box. You got to process your information to get back in. I love that. Is that something that you created because of your experiences, or was that something you were taught as well?
Yeah, it was actually fairly recently. I was usually a one more guy. I've been a one more guy like my whole life. Which I don't think is the worst thing in the world, obviously, because you're getting more swings, right? And I think that volume accumulates. But I started taking really short rounds in my training, like crazy short rounds, and I felt like I could be a little bit sharper. So especially if we're doing something for the kids that's challenging, like if the kid's 10 years old and they're hitting off the hack attack at any speed, right? Or like any sort of overhand throw, like it's a difficult environment for them.
Yeah.
So I keep it short. Like if I'm working with a high school guy and I'm throwing him front toss and we're working on the outer half, and he's locked in, like I might feed him 40 balls straight. You know, if we're in an environment that's not easy, it's never easy, but it's not as challenging. If that
Yeah,
makes
right.
sense.
No, I'm buying into that just because there's different ways to attack the mental development of hitting, and I don't think we do enough of it as in general in the hitting community. I think as we start to get older, these become more focused because you see the ups and downs, and then how long you're on this earth, right?
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, when I was 22 years old and I'm fresh out of college, and I actually worked for these guys for Jaws when he was at Balls and Strikes, and I had actually done all their camps for him when I came back through the summer.
Yep.
And back then, I was just like, I didn't know how to handle the 8-year-old kid that
I didn't
is,
at first
like,
either.
all ticked off. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I had no clue.
I was in that position where I was like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so a lot has changed as you grow and get older. And we think about the maturity of just where you're at. And I think that we feed off of what we learn, right? And how do we translate that in there? And I just love those pieces, man. And what are some of the things that you do here? We're going to kind of talk about your role here with Rawlings a little bit. What do you do for the Tigers program?
So it's a combination of just coaching, a lot of coaching, right? Whether it's the private side or the high school teams or swing formats with Braxton, the new program. I feel like I'm doing, I juggle some sort of all of that every night. From the marketing side, I basically assist Spiker.
I gotcha.
He'll pass a task off to me that, he might not have time to get to, and he is a genius with that stuff.
You guys I will say that because I follow you guys, of course. And the stuff that's been posted recently has been a really nice job on your social media side. And I'm assuming those are things that you have your hands. Is that what you went to school for?
Yeah, so I went for communications. So it was, public relations, journalism, and I'll be honest, I felt like I just wanted to play baseball, right? So we're doing the alumni player interviews that I was like, hey, I just thought we needed to do more for our alumni, when I got back home from Colorado. And next thing you know, I'm writing, like little articles up about the kids, and I'm like, oh, I'm actually using my degree. This is sweet.
Yeah, there you go. I love that, man. I don't know if it's just because of this part of the show was coming up in the winter workout tour, but when you go through the algorithm on Facebook and stuff like that, next thing you know, you see all the different pop-ups, and it's like, man, that thing was from 8 days ago. How am I now just seeing this? Yeah, and I think that's what's cool about Reels is because there's always a new person viewing it, even if it's 10 days later or whatever. But you guys are doing a nice job of that. So continue doing that hard work. Now, are you going back into the Mid-America League with like the Joplin Outlaws, or are you going to play professional baseball again with the same team you played with last summer?
I'm going back to the Pioneer League.
Okay.
I'll be with the Ogden Raptors in Utah. So same league, different team. Just had a good couple phone calls with the manager and, trying to feel out where's the best spot for me to, have a chance to be an everyday guy.
Yeah.
So that's where I'll be headed.
Do you think that this is where the career path, how do you see this? And this is kind of a personal question. So, answer how you wish, but what is the next step for you? Are we going to try to get to affiliate ball, or do you where are you at with your mindset with professional sports?
In a sense, I almost feel like I'm playing on a little bit of borrowed time, just because when I went to the Pioneer League in 23, the year after I graduated from MOBAP. I got released at the end of spring training, coached with the O'Fallon Hoots all that rest of that summer. And I thought I was going to come home, and I just was like, I'll be gone in 2 weeks, because a couple teams were like, hey, we'll call you. And, obviously the call never came. So I coached there the rest of the summer. And then I worked under Pat Evers at Maryville in the fall.
Yep.
And I wasn't hitting, I was just coaching, and I had the itch bad. And I was like, man, I think I want to try to get back to that level. I honestly played pretty well in camp that year, I thought, but they just had somebody that's better than me. It's like, I found out real fast it's a game of opportunity.
Yeah.
Right. If the spot's not open, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're not going to get it.
Right.
So I needed a place to play, right? For the beginning of the year, and I saw something about Joplin, how they're moving leagues, and I just emailed Nick, and I went down there for about a month. But for me, career-wise, I feel like I continually surprise myself, as I keep reaching levels that I aspire to get to, right? But I'm not sure if I can get there.
Yeah.
for me, when I was at Missouri Baptist, like, I just wanted to play professionally. Like, I did not care where. Like, I was like, I want to play professionally. Kenny Grazer got me into the draft league, the second half of the draft league for the graduated guys. And, I played pretty well out there. And, like, it was really, for me, I think the coolest part was figuring out that I could play with the guys that I watched on the SEC network. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, because I didn't know. Like, I'd never really played at that level before.
sure.
Right? So, I think now it's the Pioneer League. It's the same thing. Like, you could ask Jaws, you could ask my wife. Like, I told him in January, I was like, I'm going to play another year, and, like, I'm going to be done after the year's over. Like, I'm done.
So what happens in the next year if you just go light this league up and you get like 5 phone calls? Maybe you don't get to go somewhere, but you get 5 phone calls that keep you interested. You're going to come home, put on like 10 pounds of muscle and just get ripped and try to hit nukes everywhere and get picked up by like the White Sox or the Rays.
It would be awesome if it happened. Obviously, I would be excited about it, but I think I finally this year played not worrying about it.
Nice.
Because I saw some players on my Vibe team, like, they were just good. Like, they're good. There were guys that bounced out of affiliated ball and came there. And, they're 10th round draft picks. Our shortstop was Josh Day from Mizzou.
Yeah.
And he's a good player, right?
Right.
So I figured out that, like, there's definitely an element of right place, right time. There's a lot of players that are really good. Like, when I was there for about that month and a half, a couple of the teams we played against had guys get signed out of there. And, like, yeah, they were obviously, they were standing out this much, I felt like, in comparison to everybody else, because everyone's good. Like, everyone's getting paid and everyone's doing their job.
Everybody's good.
Right.
That's
So,
the key, is everybody's good.
I think for me, I want to replicate this year the mentality I had last year, where I was like, well, if I go out to Colorado and get released, like, at least I got to go out there for a little while.
Yeah.
And I'll just come home.
That's an interesting sway of probably what you were like when you were 20, 21, 22, because now that
all I cared about was getting to the next level. That's all I
yeah.
cared about.
And then but now that you've experienced that, and then even with your age, I feel like there's a lot of 21 and 22-year-olds that are getting a lot of money invested in, and it's very difficult as a older athlete in the professional ranks to get that sniff. So I feel like that's very difficult. That's why I asked the question. Some people don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I've had some friends that have been released, and I've had those experiences that don't like baseball right now.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I was there for a while.
yeah, and it seems like that, and all of a sudden you get this love back, and you're going to find a way to get back into the game.
Yeah.
And that's what it was for me when I lost my passion for this. I got back into coaching.
Yeah.
And then someone said, "Hey, why don't you join us for a baseball game?" I'm like, "Who plays baseball as an adult?" That's all I had left. I was playing slow pitch softball. I was having a couple adult beverages, going out playing in a D League in O'Fallon, crushing lights. And so I felt pretty good about just doing that. And someone's like, "Hey, we could go play baseball in this adult league over in the Ferguson area." And I'm like, "We can still play baseball?"
Yeah.
I'm 25, 26 years old. And I'm like, I didn't know that was a thing. I thought baseball was over.
You're done, yep.
Yeah, and then I got invested into the Montclair League. I played with the St. Louis Spikes with the Montclair League, and did that for a while and had great times there, and got to play toss 40.
Yep.
And so for the next 15 years, I got to play for the love of the game and the passion that I grew up enjoying.
Yeah.
And from what it sounds like, that's what you're going through right now is you had that 21 to 23 time frame where it was very difficult for you, but the last 2 years have been kind of special. Well, I'm including this year. Last 2 years have been special for you, kind of mentality-wise. But what's one piece of advice that you can give all hitters? It doesn't matter if they're 10 or if they're 28. What is something that you can give a little nugget of information that we can go out there and be confident in our hitting?
It's, well, like you said, being confident, but one piece, I think I would have to go with the mental side. Some sort of being able to, like, compete clear-headed, even if you're 0 for 3 and you have your 4th and 5th ABs. Again, something I did not do for a long time.
Yeah.
If I had a bad 3 ABs, I might as well,
Yeah, take you out of the game?
yeah, because I was done. But I think I was actually playing in the Mink League in 2021, and I finally figured out, I was like, dude, I could go 0 for 3, and, like, what made me the happiest was being 0 for 3 or 0 for 4 and, like, collecting the hit on my 5th at bat and finished the night 1 for 5 instead of 0 for 4. Right, and I might have had 4 bad at bats, right? But like I found a way to like get a job done doing something, right? And I think if again going back to one piece of advice, it was like every at bat's like its own thing.
I think it's even at the at bat, it's really pitch to pitch. It's its own thing, because if you have runners on and there's a pass ball, you have a new situation, you have a new thought process. It's 1-0. You know, the situation obviously changes, and so you have to live that pitch to pitch, and that's what I try to encourage to my young kids too. And everybody I talk to on the hitting side, it is literally the same message. It in some different language, of course. They use their own verbiage, but it's the same for me. It's live pitch to pitch. I heard something. I think it was Kristen Yelich was talking about. He talked about David Freese with the you get 5 to 8 pitches in a game to swing at, or 3 minutes of a 3-hour game that you get a chance to be locked in. But he also talked about that it in baseball, it takes a really long time to be bad. It takes a really long time to be good.
Yeah, it's a game of consistency.
Yeah, and it's just the law of averages will even itself out, because you can barrel baseballs 10 out of 10 times and get out 10 times. But you can hit bloopers and blooper, and the next thing you know it, you have you're 10 for 20 and you're hitting 500, but you're still not satisfied. Yeah. Because you hit 10 bloopers. Yeah. So it's like, which one are you? And again, I always go back to pitch, man, and just, did you barrel the ball? Yep. Walk away. You did the best you could. Yeah. It's 1 versus 8 guys in front of you. The pitcher included, the catcher's behind you. So I'm like, you have nothing to lose. Yep. Swing hard, Casey, hit is what my dad told me. That was my hitting instruction as a kid. Yeah, I love that. And it started with bass fishing, believe it or not, because I wouldn't set the hook on a fish, and he was just like, swings are for free, buddy. And I didn't know what it meant. Then I got older, and I kept adapting that into the game. Yep. He says, swing hard, Casey, hit it. Yep. I can't tell you how many times my eyes were closed and I hit a ball and just hit it over the fence, and like I don't think I've seen it the last 3 feet. You know what I mean? So. But anyways, I was excited to come here today because I obviously got to meet you, and I've been following you. I'm going to still follow you this year. What's your Instagram?
Instagram is C_Mize, MIZY. So
you got content that you put on there for like this kind of stuff, and like any of your training or even some of your playing stuff?
My playing stuff, yeah, mostly playing and pictures with me and the wife or something. I usually, most of my content now that I'm full-time here will go through the Tigers pages.
Gotcha.
Whether it's STL Rawlings Tigers or just Rawlings Tigers or.
And are they on all their socials as well? Because I have them on Facebook and I think Instagram. Are they on TikTok or anything like that? Or is it just a Twitter? Or X?
Twitter.
Is it X?
X, yeah. Twitter, X, whatever, for sure. But we're on all 3 of those.
Awesome. Go give this man a follow. Obviously the Rawlings Tigers, he works here. There's some great, you've seen Braxton Martinez on this show. He's here with this group. He's a minor league baseball coach. I'm not sure who he's working with. Do you know?
Braxton? The Rays.
Devil Rays, that's right. I did know that because PhD. I'm having a brain fart. Shane Eames, geez. He worked with him one day, and we actually were down there working with him, and he had a round of BP that he only took like 3 swings, set a bat down. They had a 5-minute conversation, picked it up, took 3 swings, put the bat down. Yeah. Talks about your short rounds of BP to kind of focus on those things. And so that's an old session. That's probably 2 years old by now. You'd say, Drew? Yeah. But anyways, Carter, I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys go give these a follow. It's part of the winter workout tour. We're here at this beautiful facility inside down in Chesterfield, Missouri. It's just 15 minutes from kind of Wentzville, that Westplex area, 10 minutes from St. Louis, 270 and 4064, I guess it is over here. And again, the biggest thing I need you to do is go to YBM. You got to go to their YouTube page. You got to hit the subscribe button, hit the dinger so you can get good content like this. We got Darren Sissel coming up. We got Moms on here, and then they're going live tonight. And they're going to have a bunch of, you might see him again. You might see Braxton, and it's going to probably be busy, I would assume.
Yeah. Always is. This time of year.
Dude, it's insane. I have very little parking at my space. And like every time I get in and I walk by, somebody's like, dude, can you expand the parking? I'm like, if I expand the parking, I get to expand the building. So I'd be happy to do both. Yeah. Because that means business is good, right? So, but again, I appreciate everybody out there. Again, YBM, subscribe, like, follow, share. I think they're on all the socials. I need you to do that so that we can continue to grow our brand for these podcasts, so we can bring on young players like this who are kind of fresh out of college ball, playing pro ball. And it's exciting to have a different view on the game, when it comes to some of these younger guys. And just one last thing, though, before I let everybody go, President's Day, we do have a camp at the Hitting Zone. It's going to be a morning camp. It's $64. It'll be a 2.5-hour camp. We will do everything from movement training, skills, and drills to get your athlete ready to go for the season, ages 10 to 14U. And you can go to our Facebook page, and that camp will be listed there and a link to sign up. But everybody have a great day in the Lord, and peace out.